Hello, Mermaid. So, I just wanted to review a book. The book I want to review is this one, Nature Spirituality from the Ground Up by Lupa. This is how it looks. And what's interesting about this book compared to a lot of pagan books is that, first of all, it's not aimed at Wicca. And it's quite refreshing actually to at times read a book about nature spirituality that is not directed specifically at our current breed of neo-paganism. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's a system that I use quite often. And there's also that I think that a lot of Wiccans will have a lot of use out of this book, but it's not specifically geared towards Wiccans. So, another interesting thing about this book is that it actually teaches you a lot of things about the processes of nature. It doesn't just deal with the magical and spiritual stuff. It also deals with the actual nature science behind it and what these different things are, how these different processes works, and then how you can look at them from a spiritual point of view, which not many books do, and which is quite interesting. One complaint I do have about the book is that it does not feel good in the hand. It doesn't have that fake velvety Satan's ballsack cover, but the cover here it's just so soft. It's the fronts here it's hardly cardboard at all. It's hardly thicker than the paper, and it just makes it feel incredibly cheap. Other than that, it's a pretty good book, but let's have a look at some of the content. We have, of course, an introduction, which is, introduction. We have one, the importance of reconnecting with nature, which is a good chapter. It basically, and it's not just for people that are pagan. It's basically a commentary on our modern Western society in general, about how we need to get a stronger connection with nature because we have lost something in losing our connection to it. Then we have the basics of regionalism. I probably pronounced that wrong, but basically it discusses various areas in nature, how it all fits together, and also how you can look at that spiritually, but mostly it is the basic facts behind it, how this functions together, and that is quite interesting. Then you have 3, introducing the totems themselves, basically how to work with what is nature totems and so on and so forth. Then you have the totemic ecosystem, which is also quite interesting. It's a way to look spiritually at nature, which I find quite fascinating. You have 5 practices for the totems on yourself, which is pretty self-explanatory. And we have 6, which is totemism every day. I really like that chapter because I feel, sorry, that was actually a quite rude gesture. Totemism every day, basically, I believe that a spirituality, whatever you are, Christian or you are Wiccan or any spiritual path you might have, Shintoist, Buddhist, Taoist, whatever it is very important to have it as part of your daily life. If you just basically go to church every Christmas or every so often you join in on a group ritual or something like that, whatever your path might be, you will not get the same kind of benefits that if you have a daily practice and include this within your daily life. So that's a good chapter. And a conclusion, wandering at the world, which is basically about how wonderful nature is and a gratitude towards nature. Then we have Appendix A, recommended reading. Appendix B, beneficial non-profit organization. Appendix C, helpful hints for totemic research. and is a quick guide to guided meditation, and a glossary, a bibliography, and an index. Basically, a few notes about what's good about this book. First of all, it knows what it is, it knows what it wants to communicate. A lot of books basically bite over more than they can chew. They have a little bit of this and they have a little bit of that, and it all ends up being very, very shallow. This isn't it. This have one specific goal in mind. It discusses that at length and leave it at that, which is quite refreshing. It's an interesting way to look at nature spirituality, because this book, I would say, is one part information about how nature works, one part discussion on that we need to start preserving the environment and getting stronger bonds with nature, and one part about spiritual contact with nature and the paganism of it. So it's a quite interesting book. It is well written, it's easy to understand, and it deals with these topics in a very thorough and well-rounded way. So yes, I don't really have a lot of complaints about this book. Basically, if what you're looking for is your standard pagan book, this isn't it, but you should probably have figured that out by reading the description of it. There are really good rituals in here, there are some really good meditations and ideas, and yeah, it's a very good book, and I think that it might be a good purchase, because if you're anything like me, you end up with a lot of the typical Wiccan books on your bookshelves. You have all of those, but sometimes it's interesting to look at paganism from a different point of view, and then books like this can be very useful. So yeah, other than the book, basically the binding of the book being a terrible quality, it is really, really crap. This is one of the books I would consider picking up if I had known how bad the quality of the actual printed book is. I would have considered getting it as an ebook instead, because it really is dreadful. Other than that, I have no real complaints, and the content is quite excellent. Lupa seldom make bad books. I'm a big fan of this author, and she does not disappoint with this one. It's a very adult, very interesting, and very in-depth look at a bit of a different type of nature spirituality, basing itself on a gratitude towards nature, an understanding of how nature works, and seeing the spiritual in those practices and connecting with that. And that's my review of Nature Spirituality from the Ground Up, Connecting with Totems in the Ecosystem by Lupa. Hope you have a great day, and blessed be.